B-roll at Starbeck Station, and welcome to Most Buses in Harrogate. In this one-off pilot pitch kick-off special, I'm going to try and ride most of the buses in Harrogate. There are 23 bus routes in Harrogate. Of these, 4 are school buses that I couldn't ride even if I wanted to, which I don't, and 1 only runs on a Saturday. That leaves 18 bus routes that I could potentially ride. I'm going to try and ride on more than half of them, so 10 or more. The first on the list is the number 1. Later on in the day, that's broken down into the 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D. But if you like your number 1s like Scotty likes his Enterprises, it only runs inconveniently early in the morning and impossibly late for me in the evening. Which is why I woke up at 4 a.m, got a bus and a train, and here I am at 6:55 to catch the last number 1 to Harrogate of the day. The number 1 runs from the Harrogate Bus Company's depot in Starbeck into Harrogate, and it's used to bring buses into service. It's quite a nice route, which is lucky because I'll be seeing a lot of it today. Once I got to Harrogate, I got out, then got right back on this bus, now operating as the 1D, and rode it to Scriven. Yep, I'm doubling back on myself. The driver was kind of bemused, and I guess I don't blame him, though I stand by what I said. It is quite a nice route.
Hello, welcome on board the Harrogate Bus Company. This is the 1D to Starbeck, Knaresborough, Carmyers and the Pastures.
The 1D is one of 4 routes that run between Harrogate and Knaresborough all day and well into the night, and have a combined frequency of every 10 minutes at peak times. The 1D runs hourly, as does the 1C, with the 1A and 1B running twice hourly. They all share the same route, except at the eastern end where they split off to serve different suburbs. I found out that the 1C not only shares its route with the other ones between Harrogate and Knaresborough, but it also shares with the 1D between Knaresborough and Scriven. The 1D continues a short distance into the Pastures housing estate, then goes back the way it came, so I decided I'd hop off here and ride the 1C instead. The 1C has a circular route, so this way I'd get to see a bit more of the northern suburbs of Knaresborough. A stop off at a petrol station for a top up on provisions, and then I was on my way back to Knaresborough. It's only a mile, but it took a quarter of an hour because the bus stops along this route are very closely spaced, which in my opinion is a good thing. No usable video of the 1C because I didn't get a window seat and I don't like pointing a camera at people without their consent. I decided to turn back in Knaresborough for 2 reasons. For one, I'd already seen the route between Knaresborough and Harrogate, so riding it again seemed kind of pointless. Also, it was rush hour, so I wanted to free up a seat for someone who needed it. Speaking of rush hour, traffic was starting to have an effect on service and led to the only delayed bus of the day. My next bus was going to be either the 1A or the 1B, whichever turned up first, and it was the 1B a little over half an hour later that came to whisk me away to somewhere I didn't expect to be. An Aldi. Before I'd come out, I had a preconception of this part of Yorkshire as being rather upmarket. I hadn't expected to see discount supermarkets at all. Turns out Aldi and Lidl do have several stores in Harrogate. However posh you are, us Yorkshire folk do love a bargain. My original plan was to catch the 21 back to Knaresborough, but the 21 doesn't actually carry on to Harrogate, which means it doesn't count. The next bus that came along happened to be a 1B, so I hopped on board, headed back to Knaresborough to finish up the number 1s. This time I was only waiting a few minutes before the 1A came along, and a 10-minute ride later, I was at St James's Retail Park. With my arrival here, I was done with the 1s and done with Knaresborough. I had about an hour before my next bus, so I enjoyed my first break in 5 hours. Boy, did I need that break. Even McDonald's seemed like a good idea. We pick up the story just before noon, with the arrival of the slow bus from Harrogate to Wetherby. Wetherby isn't in Harrogate. It isn't even in North Yorkshire, but it is where the 7 and 8 meet. The 8 only has 4 return trips a day, so I rode it all the way down to Wetherby. This was one of the most scenic routes I rode all day, but sadly, the bus windows were filthy, so not many views to be had today. Wetherby is a town in the northern bit of Leeds, and it seems like a good time to bring up the full series. This video isn't just an exploration of Harrogate, it's also a pitch for a full series. There are so many places I could have hopped off at if I'd had the time to devote a whole day to just 1 or 2 routes. That's what I want to do in Leeds. Places like this cured meat shop in Starbeck. What meat does it sell? What previously ailed it, of which it's now been cured? There's probably a whole diversion in this one row of shops, which I simply didn't have time for. The full series is crowdfunding now. I'll be exploring Leeds, which it turns out is a surprisingly big place. I won't just be hopping from point to point like I am here, though I suspect there'll be a bit of that too. And if you want to help make it happen, there's a link to the crowdfunding page on Ko-Fi in the description. But now, back to Wetherby Bus Station, which is less a bus station, more an out-of-the-way bus shelter and one nearby bus stop. The number 7 is the fast bus between Wetherby and Harrogate. There is a faster one from Leeds city centre, the number 36, which I'll be ticking off later. The 7 was rather busy, and I don't like filming people without their consent, so there's very little video I can use. I hopped off 1 stop before the bus station, because it turns out video files are rather large and I needed a USB drive to offload some onto. USB drive procured, courtesy of Associated Dairies, I changed onto the number 2, the first of the electric buses I'd ride today, and the first bus that's local to Harrogate itself. The number 2 set me down at a lovely row of shops in the Harrogate suburb of Bilton, about 1.5 miles north of Harrogate Centre. I had the wonderful idea of walking to Jennyfield to wander around and catch the number 3 back to town. I only made it as far as the Chippy. I'd planned on getting fish and chips at Wetherby, but I simply didn't have the time. Bit hard to film with hands full of chips though. Maybe I need to get a head mount for my phone or something. Round the back of the Chippy is the Harrogate Leisure and Wellness Centre. Bit of a mouthful, so the locals seem to call it the Hydro for some inadequately explored reason. The 3 is another all-electric circular route that goes all the way around the Jennyfield suburb. Seems nice, wouldn't mind living there. I got back to Harrogate Bus Station where the bus plugged itself in. The Harrogate Bus Company runs a bunch of electric buses, and they solve the problem of range by having fast chargers at the bus station. Seeing as the buses are just going to be sitting there anyway, every time they finish a circuit, they plug themselves in and have a quick opportunity charge. The last bus I couldn't miss today was the number 24, only 7 trips a day, only one of which actually serves the full route. 2 p.m. was the only time I could ride any of them, and I wasn't alone. Demand for this route was so high they had an inspector walking the queue checking and selling tickets. It does make me wonder, why is this route served so infrequently? Looking at the route on an overhead map, it looks utterly beautiful. I wanted to ride it to Burswith, which looks gorgeous. I wanted to go all the way to Pateley Bridge, an hour away, and see the oldest sweet shop in the world. I could have easily spent an entire day on this route. Sadly, I had a train to catch, so I had to get off on the main road and spend 10 minutes on the 36 going back to town. But I only rode about 1/5 of the number 24. The 36 goes all the way north to Ripon, all the way south to Leeds, and I rode hardly any of that at all. So have I actually ticked off these buses? Yes, I've got on them, sat down, and allowed them to transport me. albeit briefly. But the goal was to get a feel for the route. I don't know if I've really done that. You'll have to let me know in the comments. The 1A dropped me back in Starbeck, and I finished the day as I'd begun it many hours earlier. I retired to a nearby cafe, ordered myself the biggest hot chocolate they had, and settled in to relax and wait for my train home. I've ticked off all 5 1s, the 2, the 3, the 7, and the 8. That is half of the buses in Harrogate. If the 24 and 36 count, I've achieved my goal of riding most buses in Harrogate. If they don't, I've come pretty close. I had no issues with the trains, and all my buses turned up, all of them on time aside from the rush hour 1B. I've seen the potential for what a series like this could be. So, I'll quickly ask once again for your support to make the full series possible. You can sign up to my Ko-Fi. Right now a one-off donation is most helpful. Once the full series is funded, I'll be switching to a Patreon-style model of membership tiers, which existing donors will be grandfathered into. That's it for this video. I'll hopefully see you again, but in the meantime, please engagement